The alarm stopped ringing, and Commander Jake lowered his weapon. Another drill. Another failure. He looked through the thick glass at the creature in the containment cell and felt the familiar weight of frustration settle on his shoulders. Had not moved. The massive alien sat in the corner of his cell, facing the wall like he always did. 8 feet of pure muscle and obsidian scales, claws that could tear through steel, and eyes that glowed amber in the dim light. The most dangerous being on Research Station Meridian, and he would not even look at them. 6 months, Dr. Lisa said beside Jake. She held her data pad close to her chest, her eyes scanning the readouts. 6 months, and we are no closer to understanding him than the day he arrived. Jake knew the numbers. It had taken 12 hunters to capture on his home world of Prime. 9 of them had died in the attempt. The species was legendary across the galaxy. Apex predators from a death world where everything wanted to kill you was supposed to be their key to understanding these unstoppable warriors. Instead, he was slowly dying in a cell, refusing to eat, refusing to acknowledge anyone's existence. The Council is losing patience, Lisa continued. She turned away from the glass, her voice dropping low. They sent another message today. If we cannot produce results soon, they want him terminated. Jake said nothing. He had read the same message. The Galactic Council had invested enormous resources in capturing and studying. They wanted to know how to fight how to predict them, how to stop them. War was brewing on the border worlds, and knowledge was the only advantage they had. But you could not study something that would rather die than cooperate. Every species we have tried, Lisa said, listing them on her fingers. Even the empathic, he attacks them all, or he ignores them. The drones last 5 minutes before he destroys them. The robots do not even get that long. Jake watched breathe. Slow, steady breaths that moved his massive frame up and down. How could something so dangerous look so tired? Maybe we are asking the wrong questions, Jake said. Lisa looked at him with sharp eyes. What do you mean? We keep trying to study him like he is an animal. What if he is more than that? What if he understands exactly what we are doing, and he is choosing not to participate? Lisa considered this. The psychological profiles suggest high intelligence, but without communication we cannot know for certain, and we cannot establish communication when he will not even acknowledge our presence. The door behind them opened, and Jake turned to see his daughter skip into the observation room. Amy was 7 years old, all energy and curiosity, with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and a smile that could light up the darkest room. "Daddy," she called out, running to him. Jake caught her in a hug, lifting her off the ground. "Hey, sweetheart, I thought you were supposed to stay in the visitor quarters." "I got bored," Amy said, completely honest as always. "Mrs. fell asleep, and I wanted to see where you work." Lisa smiled despite the serious conversation they had been having. "Hello, Amy. I am Doctor. Your father talks about you all the time." Amy beamed at this. Then her eyes caught sight of the containment cell and her mouth fell open. "Whoa, who is that?" "That is," Jake said, setting her down but keeping a hand on her shoulder. "He is why Daddy has to work such long hours. We are trying to understand him." Amy walked closer to the glass, her small hand reaching up to touch it. He looked sad. Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. Sad was not a word anyone had used to describe before. Dangerous, aggressive, lethal, impossible, but not sad. "Why do you say that?" Lisa asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Amy shrugged, still looking at. "He sits in the corner all alone. That is what I do when I am sad. I sit in my room and face the wall." Something about her words made Jake uncomfortable. He had been so focused on as a threat, as a specimen, as a problem to solve. Had he forgotten to see him as a being who might have feelings? "Come on, Amy," Jake said, gently pulling her away from the glass. "You should not be in this section. It is dangerous." "But he is not doing anything," Amy protested. "He is just sitting there." "That does not mean he is safe. Is very dangerous. He has hurt a lot of people." Amy looked back at one more time before Jake led her toward the door. Did he hurt them because he wanted to, or because he was scared? The question stopped Jake in his tracks. Out of the mouths of children came wisdom that adults somehow forgot. Before he could answer, his communication device beeped. Station Commander Sanders wanted to see him immediately. Jake took Amy back to the visitor quarters, making sure Mrs. was awake this time. Then he headed to the commander's office, where he found both Sanders and Lisa already waiting. We have a problem, Sanders said without preamble. He was a big man, former military, with gray hair and a face that had seen too many battles. The Council has sent Coordinator Vex to inspect our progress. He arrives in 3 days. Lisa looked worried. His species has been at war with for generations. He will not be objective. Objective or not, he has full authority to evaluate our program, Sanders said. If he decides we have failed, he can order termination on the spot. We need a breakthrough, and we need it now. Jake thought about Amy's words, scared, not cruel. What if she was right? What if we change our approach? Jake suggested. Stop trying to force interaction. Stop sending in species he might see as threats. Try something completely different. Like what? Sanders asked. Jake did not have an answer, not yet. But as he walked back to his quarters that night, he could not stop thinking about the way he had looked. Tired, alone, maybe even sad. When he got home, Amy was already asleep, her small body curled up in the bed they had set up for her visit. Jake sat beside her, watching her breathe. She made everything seem simple. See a problem, find a solution. See someone sad, try to help. The next morning, Jake woke to find Amy's bed empty. Panic hit him like a physical blow. He checked the bathroom, the common area, the kitchen, nothing. He grabbed his communicator and called security. All units, this is Commander. My daughter is missing. 7 years old, brown hair, last seen in Visitor Quarters, Section 7. Find her now. The search took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of Jake's heart pounding in his chest, imagining every terrible possibility. When the security team finally contacted him, their voices were strange. Commander, you need to come to Observation Deck 3. Now. Jake ran. He burst through the doors of the observation deck and stopped dead. There was Amy, standing in front of his containment cell, her small hand pressed against the glass. And for the first time in 6 months had turned around. The Massive was facing them, his glowing amber eyes fixed on the small human child. Slowly, carefully, moved across his cell. He came to the glass and raised one massive clawed hand. He pressed it against the glass, directly opposite Amy's tiny palm. Jake could not breathe. Lisa appeared beside him, her data pad shaking in her hands as she watched the readings. His stress levels, she whispered. They are dropping. His aggression markers are gone. Jake, he is calm. Amy looked back at them and smiled. See, he is not scary, he is just lonely. Jake did not know whether to pull his daughter away to safety or fall to his knees in relief. In the end, he did neither. He just stood there, watching the apex predator and the child share a moment of connection that no scientist, no soldier, no expert had been able to achieve. Everything they thought they knew about was wrong, and a 7-year-old girl had just proven it. The observation deck had become very crowded very quickly. Scientists rushed in with equipment. Security personnel formed a perimeter. Everyone wanted to see the impossible thing happening in front of them. But Jake only had eyes for his daughter, still standing at the glass with her hand pressed against it, and the massive alien on the other side mirroring her gesture. Amy, Jake said softly, moving closer but not touching her yet. Sweetheart, I need you to step back slowly. Why? Amy asked, not taking her eyes off. He is being nice. Lisa was frantically typing on her data pad, pulling up screens full of information that Jake could not begin to understand. Commander, you need to see this. His heart rate is steady. His body temperature has normalized. There are no signs of aggressive behavior at all. This is unprecedented. Station Commander Sanders pushed through the crowd. Someone explain to me what I am looking at. A miracle, Lisa said quietly, or a complete revolution in everything we thought we knew about. Jake knelt beside Amy, finally placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. How did you get in here, sweetheart? I woke up early, Amy explained, still watching with fascination. You were sleeping, so I went exploring. I remembered where you worked yesterday. The doors were not locked. A security failure. Jake would deal with that later. Right now, he needed to get his daughter to safety, except she did not look like she was in danger. And the creature who had torn apart armored soldiers and destroyed combat drones looked as calm as a sleeping cat. Can you tell me what happened when you got here? Lisa asked, moving closer but staying several feet back. Amy shrugged. I came to the window and looked at him. He was sitting in the corner like yesterday, so I said hello. And he turned around and looked at me. Then I put my hand on the glass because I wanted to say I was friendly, and he came over and put his hand here too. She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. like she had not just accomplished what an entire station full of experts could not do in 6 months. "What did you feel when you looked at him?" Lisa asked. Her scientist brain was working overtime, trying to understand the variables. Amy thought about this. "He looked like how I felt when we moved to the new colony and I did not know anyone. Lonely, like he wanted a friend but did not know how to ask." Jake felt something twist in his chest. His daughter's simple empathy had cut through all their complicated theories and protocols. She had not seen a dangerous specimen. She had seen someone who needed kindness. Had not moved. His hand remained pressed to the glass, his eyes fixed on Amy. This close, Jake could see details he had never noticed before. The amber glow of his eyes was not threatening. It was almost warm. The set of his shoulders was not aggressive but weary. "We need to test this," Sanders said. "Carefully, very carefully. If there is a chance we can communicate with him, we need to take it, but I will not risk the child." "I am not leaving," Amy said with the stubborn certainty only a 7-year-old could manage. "Might get sad again if I leave." Jake asked, "Since when do you call him by his name?" "That is his name, right? Doctor said it yesterday." Lisa stepped forward. "Amy, what if we set up a special room where you could talk to, not through the glass but through a speaker system? You would be completely safe, but he could hear your voice." Amy considered this. "Can he hear me now?" "The cells are soundproof. He cannot hear us at all." "That is mean," Amy said. "No wonder he is so lonely. He cannot even hear anyone." Out of the mouths of children, Jake thought again. They had isolated completely, cut off from every sense except sight. How would any intelligent being react to that kind of sensory deprivation? "If I agree to stay in the safe room, will you let him hear me?" Amy asked. Sanders looked at Jake. Jake looked at his daughter, then back at Sanders. This was insane. It violated every protocol, but those protocols had failed. Maybe it was time to try something new. "Yes," Jake said before Sanders could object. "But I stay with you the entire time, and if anything goes wrong, we stop immediately." It took an hour to set up the equipment. They moved Amy to a secure observation room with reinforced walls and a communication panel. Jake stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, ready to pull her away at the first sign of danger. Lisa and her team monitored vital signs from the main observation deck. When the speaker activated, Amy leaned forward eagerly. "Hi, can you hear me?" His head snapped toward the speaker mounted in his cell. His whole body went tense. For a moment, Jake thought they had made a terrible mistake, then moved to the wall where the speaker was located. He pressed his hand against it, the same gesture he had made at the glass. "He can hear you," Lisa's voice came through their own speaker. "His vitals spiked but are normalizing again. Keep talking, Amy." "My name is Amy," she continued. "I am sorry you have been so lonely. Nobody should be all alone like that. I was alone when we first moved to the colony station. But then I made friends at school. Do you have friends?" Did not respond, but his eyes never left the speaker. He was listening to every word. "I like to draw pictures," Amy said. "And I have a cat named Whiskers back home. Well, he is not really mine because we found him as a stray, but Daddy said we could keep him. Do you have any pets?" Jake wanted to tell his daughter that probably could not understand her that this was pointless. But something stopped him. The way was focusing on the speaker. The way his breathing had slowed and steadied. He was not just hearing sounds. He was listening. For the next hour, Amy talked. She told about her school, her friends, her favorite games. She told him about the time she fell off her bike and scraped her knee. She told him about missing her mom, who had died when Amy was 4. She talked the way children do, jumping from topic to topic with no filter or plan. And listened to all of it. "He has not been this calm since we captured him," Lisa reported. "Whatever she is doing, it is working." "She is treating him like a person," Jake said quietly. "Not a specimen, not a threat, just a person who needs someone to talk to." Sanders had joined them in the observation deck. "This is remarkable, but we need more than calm behavior. We need communication. We need to understand him." "Give it time," Lisa said. "We are witnessing first contact protocols, just not the way we expected. The child is building trust. That is the foundation for everything else." As if to prove her point, did something no one expected. He moved to the corner of his cell where the floor was covered in a thin layer of dust and debris from his many destroyed drones. Using one massive claw, he began to draw. "What is he doing?" Sanders asked. Lisa pulled up a camera feed that showed drawing, simple lines and circles, a stick figure. He is drawing like Amy said she does. Amy noticed it too on the video feed they had activated for her room. Look, you are drawing too. What is that? The stick figure had 4 limbs and a round head. Pointed at it, then at the speaker where Amy's voice came from. Is that me? Amy asked, delighted. That is so good, I am going to draw you too. She pulled out her tablet, the one she always carried for her digital art. Her small fingers moved quickly, creating a simple but recognizable drawing of. She held it up to the camera so he could see. Moved closer to the camera in his cell. His eyes studied the drawing. Then he looked directly at the camera, and for the first time, they saw something that might have been an expression on his alien features. Did he just smile? One of the technicians asked. I do not know if can smile, Lisa admitted, but something changed in his face, something positive. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Amy would visit every morning and afternoon. She would talk to him, draw with him, share her day, began eating again. His health improved. The scientists monitored everything, building massive databases of information. But it was Jake who noticed the most important change. Was not just listening anymore. He was trying to respond. The drawings became more complex. He would create symbols and shapes, always watching to see Amy's reaction. He is trying to communicate, Jake realized during one session. He is building a language. Lisa nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. We are documenting a completely new form of first contact, cross-species communication developed through mutual trust and artistic expression. This will change everything we know about working with alien species. But their breakthrough was about to be interrupted. The morning of the 4th day, Sanders called an emergency meeting. When Jake arrived, he found Sanders and Lisa looking grim. Coordinator Vex arrived early, Sanders said. He is on the station now, and he has orders from the Galactic Council. He wants transferred to a military research facility immediately. He cannot do that, Jake protested. We are finally making progress. Amy took the news better than Jake expected, which somehow made it worse. She simply nodded, her small face serious, and asked if she could see one more time. Jake agreed, his heart heavy as he walked her to the observation room. Amy said into the speaker, her voice steady despite the tears gathering in her eyes. I have to tell you something, and I do not want you to be scared. Moved immediately to his usual spot near the speaker. Over the past few days, he had started responding to Amy's voice almost instantly. Now he pressed his hand against the wall, waiting. Some people are coming to take you away, Amy continued. They want to study you at a different place. I do not think they will be as nice as Doctor, but I want you to know that you are my friend and I will not forget you. Through the camera feed, they watched reaction. His whole body went rigid. The calm that had slowly built over days vanished in an instant. His stress readings spiked on Lisa's monitors. He understands, Lisa whispered from the observation deck. Look at his body language. He knows exactly what she is saying. Turned away from the speaker and moved to the corner of his cell. He began drawing frantically in the dust, his claws moving faster than they had ever seen. Symbol after symbol appeared on the floor. What is he saying? Sanders asked, watching the feed. Amy leaned closer to her screen, studying the symbols. Over the past few days, she had learned to recognize some of his drawings. This one was different, more urgent. I think, Amy said slowly, I think he is asking why. Lisa pulled up her translation database, comparing symbols to known writing. She is right. That symbol appears in the language fragments we have. It means question or why. He is asking why he has to leave. Can we tell him? Amy asked, looking up at Jake. Jake did not know how to explain politics and military strategy to a 7-year-old, much less to an alien, but he tried. Tell him that some people think they can learn more about him at a different place. They want to understand his people better. Amy repeated this too, simplifying it even more. They want to learn about you, but they do not want to be patient like Doctor. They want answers fast. Stop drawing. He looked at the camera, and even through the digital feed, Jake could see intelligence burning in those amber eyes. This was not an animal. This was a person making decisions, having thoughts, experiencing fear. Drew something new, a stick figure. Then he pointed at it and at the speaker, Amy. Yes, that is me, Amy said. Drew another figure next to it, bigger with claws himself. Then he drew a line connecting the two figures. "Friends," Amy said, her voice breaking. "We are friends." Touched the drawing gently, then looked back at the camera. He drew one more symbol, one Amy had seen before when she talked about missing her mother. "Sad," Amy translated. "He is sad." Jake had to turn away. This was worse than he had imagined. They were not just moving a specimen. They were separating friends. They were breaking the first real connection humanity had made with a species everyone thought was nothing but violent predators. That night, Jake could not sleep. He found himself in his office, staring at reports he could not focus on. Around midnight, Lisa knocked on his door. "I have been thinking," she said, sitting down without waiting for an invitation. "What if we refuse?" "Refuse what?" "Refuse to hand over. We have proof now that he is intelligent, sentient. The Galactic Council has laws about the treatment of sentient beings, is not a specimen anymore. He is a person." Jake wanted to believe it could work. Vex has full authority from the Council. He will say we are emotional, that we have become too attached to the subject. He will override us. "Not if we go over his head," Lisa said. "The Council has an ethics committee. They review cases where sentience is in question. If we can present enough evidence, they might halt the transfer." "We have 24 hours. Then we better work fast." They spent the rest of the night compiling data. Every interaction between Amy and every symbol he had drawn. Every response that showed understanding and intelligence. Lisa contacted colleagues on other stations, experts in and linguistics. Jake prepared his security reports, documenting behavioral changes. By morning, they had a case. It was not perfect, but it was something. Commander Sanders was not happy when they presented it to him. "You want to challenge a direct order from Coordinator Vex. Do you understand what that could do to your careers?" "With respect, sir," Lisa said, "I do not care about my career if it means condemning an intelligent being to torture, and that is what Vex's aggressive protocols will be. Torture." Sanders looked at Jake. "And you agree with this?" Jake thought about Amy's face when she had said goodbye to. He thought about the drawings, the symbols, the clear intelligence in size. "Yes, sir, I do." Sanders was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Submit your appeal to the Ethics Committee. I will delay Vex as long as I can, but I cannot promise it will be enough." The Ethics Committee responded within hours. They would review the case, but it would take time. Time they did not have. Coordinator Vex was already on the station, already making preparations to transport. Jake went to check on Amy and found her in the visitor quarters, drawing on her tablet. She had created dozens of pictures of. In some, he was smiling. In others, they were playing games together. In one, they were both looking at stars through a window. "You really care about him?" Jake said, sitting beside her. "He is my friend," Amy said simply. "Friends do not let friends get hurt." "What if I told you that some people are trying to make sure does not get hurt, that we might be able to stop them from taking him away?" Amy looked up, hope bright in her eyes. "Really?" "Maybe, but it is going to be hard, and it might not work." "Then we have to try harder," Amy said with absolute certainty. "That is what you always tell me. If something is worth doing, it is worth trying your hardest." Jake pulled his daughter into a hug. When had she gotten so wise? The confrontation came sooner than expected. Coordinator Vex arrived at the observation deck with a team of specialists and soldiers. He was tall and thin with blue-gray skin and eyes that held no warmth. They had been at war with the for 3 generations. He had no love for kind. "Commander," Vex said in his clipped, precise voice, "I understand you have filed an appeal with the Ethics Committee." "That is correct," Jake said, standing his ground. "A waste of time? I have reviewed your data. A child teaching an animal to draw pictures is hardly proof of sentience. Are clever predators, nothing more." "That is not what our research shows," Lisa interjected. "Demonstrates clear understanding of complex concepts. He communicates through symbols. He shows emotional responses consistent with higher intelligence." Vex dismissed this with a wave of his hand. "Emotional responses can be trained. Even simple creatures can learn to associate sounds with actions. Your research is contaminated by personal attachment. You have allowed a child to turn a dangerous specimen into a pet project." "He is not a pet," Amy's voice came from behind them. She had slipped into the observation deck without anyone noticing. "He is a person." Vex looked down at her with cold eyes. Child, you do not understand the complexities of the situation, are responsible for the deaths of millions across the galaxy. This creature's species has destroyed entire colonies. Your friendship does not change that. But did not do those things, Amy argued. He was just protecting his home. You would do the same thing. That is enough, Jake said, putting a hand on Amy's shoulder. Amy, you should not be here. No, let her speak, Vex said. I want to understand how a child has managed to convince trained scientists to abandon their objectivity. Tell me, little girl, what makes you think this creature is your friend? Amy looked up its containment cell. Through the glass, they could see him watching them. Because when everyone else sees a monster, I see someone who is scared and lonely, and when I was nice to him, he was nice back. That is what friends do. Sentiment, Vex said dismissively. The creature has learned that docile behavior results in attention. It is basic conditioning, nothing more. Commander Sanders, I want the specimen prepared for transport immediately. That cannot happen yet, Sanders said, stepping forward. The Ethics Committee has placed a temporary hold on the transfer until they complete their review. Vex's eyes narrowed. On what grounds? On the grounds that there is sufficient evidence to question whether should be classified as a sentient being rather than a specimen. If he is sentient, different protocols apply. Protocols that do not include aggressive research methods. This is an outrage, Vex said. I have full authority from the Council. The Ethics Committee's authority supersedes yours in cases of disputed sentience, Lisa said. It is in the Council Charter, Section 7, Subsection 12. Vex looked like he wanted to argue, but he was trapped by the very laws he served. How long will this review take? As long as necessary, Sanders said. Days, maybe weeks. In the meantime, stays here under our current research protocols. Vex turned to leave, but paused at the door. You have won a delay, nothing more. When the Ethics Committee sees that your evidence is nothing but wishful thinking and a child's drawings, I will return. And then that creature will face the consequences of his species' actions. Enjoy your temporary victory. When he was gone, Amy ran to the glass. You get to stay, they are not taking you away. Through the speaker, they heard something they had never heard before. A sound from Cell. It was low and rumbling, not quite a growl, but not quite speech either. It sounded almost like relief. The linguistics team arrived the next morning. Dr. Peter Grant and his assistant Dr. Murphy specialized in alien communication systems. They brought equipment that could analyze sound patterns, gesture recognition software, and translation algorithms that had cracked a dozen alien languages. But none of it worked with. The problem, Peter explained after 3 days of failed attempts, is that we need a baseline. We need to understand the structure of his language before we can translate it. With most species, we can record their natural communication and build from there, but has not spoken a word since his capture. Maybe he does not want to speak to you, Amy suggested. She was sitting in the observation room with her tablet as she did every day now. Maybe he only wants to talk to people he trusts. Peter looked at the 7-year-old with professional skepticism. Language is not about trust. It is about cognitive ability and vocal structures. If could speak, he would speak. That is not true, Amy said with the blunt honesty of a child. Sometimes I do not talk when I am upset. Even when people ask me questions, I just do not want to. Lisa, who had been monitoring the conversation, spoke up. She has a point. We have been treating this as a mechanical problem. What if it is an emotional one? What if chooses not to speak because he does not see any point in it? That would require a level of self-awareness and decision-making that suggests very high intelligence, said thoughtfully. Most creatures communicate instinctively. Choosing silence is a sophisticated response. Which supports our case for sentience, Jake added. He had been documenting everything, building their file for the Ethics Committee. Every observation, every interaction, every piece of data that showed was more than just a clever animal. The breakthrough came on the 5th day, and it came from an unexpected source. Amy had been teaching simple hand gestures. Wave for hello, point for look, hands together for thank you. She had learned them from a book about sign language and thought they might help communicate. Most of the scientists thought it was a waste of time, but learned every gesture within minutes. More than that, he began creating his own. He would combine gestures in sequences that clearly meant something. Point, then wave, then point again. Look, hello, look. He is building sentences, said, watching the recordings. Those are not random gestures. He is using syntax, basic syntax, but still, that is language. Peter was less convinced. Animals can learn sequences. Trained dogs follow multi-step commands. This does not prove language capability. But he is creating new combinations, Lisa argued. Amy only taught him 5 gestures. He has made at least 20 different combinations. That is generative. That is actual language use. The debate might have continued indefinitely, but Amy was not interested in debates. She was interested in talking to her friend. She said into the speaker, "Can you hear me?" The response was immediate. Moved to the speaker and made the gesture for hello. "I want to teach you something new," Amy continued. She held up her tablet showing a simple picture of a star. "This is a star. Can you draw a star?" Studied the image. Then he moved to his drawing area on the floor and carefully recreated the 5-pointed shape. It was not perfect, but it was clearly a star. "Good," Amy said. "Now this is the sign for star." She made up a gesture on the spot, pointing up and spreading her fingers wide. The gesture immediately. "Now I am going to show you something else." Amy displayed a picture of a planet. "This is a planet, different from a star. This is the sign." She made a circular motion with her hands. Made the circular motion. Then he did something remarkable. He pointed at the floor, made the planet gesture, then pointed at the ceiling and made the star gesture. "Planet down, star up," Amy translated. "He is telling me where they are." "That is environmental awareness," said excitedly. "He understands spatial relationships and can communicate them symbolically. This is huge." Over the next week, Amy taught dozens of signs. He learned them all. More importantly, he began teaching her signs back. A specific gesture for water, another for food, one that seemed to mean tired. They were building a shared language piece by piece. But their time was running out. The ethics committee had completed their preliminary review. They wanted to see in person before making their final decision, and coordinator Vex had convinced them to let him present the opposing case. The hearing was held in the station's main conference room. The ethics committee consisted of 3 members, a human named Dr. Helen Pierce, a named Brightness at Dawn, and a named commander. They sat at a long table, reviewing data pads while both sides prepared their presentations. Vex went first. His presentation was clinical and damning. He showed recordings of attacks on border colonies. He presented casualty reports. He displayed evidence of military tactics that had devastated entire civilizations. "This is what are," Vex concluded, "not misunderstood creatures seeking friendship, not innocent victims. They are apex predators who have chosen violence as their primary mode of interaction with other species. The specimen you call is no different. His docile behavior now is a survival strategy, nothing more. Give him the chance, and he will kill everyone on this station." It was brutal and effective. Even Jake, who had spent weeks watching interact peacefully with Amy, felt doubt creeping in. What if Vex was right? What if they were being fooled? Then it was Lisa's turn. She presented their research methodically, the behavioral changes, the communication development, the clear signs of emotional response and intelligence. She showed recordings of Amy and its interactions, the growing complexity of their shared language. "What you are seeing is not conditioning," Lisa argued. "It is relationship building, it is trust, it is friendship. These are not the behaviors of a simple predator. These are the behaviors of a sentient being capable of choice, emotion, and connection." Dr. Pierce asked the key question. "Doctor, your research is impressive, but can you prove that behavior represents genuine intelligence rather than sophisticated mimicry? Many species can learn to associate symbols with actions without truly understanding them." Before Lisa could answer, Amy stood up. She had been sitting quietly in the back of the room, but now she walked forward. "I can prove it," she said. Jake started to stop her, but Sanders held up a hand. "Let her speak." Amy looked at the ethics committee members with serious eyes. "You want to know if he's smart like us, if he can think and feel? I can show you." She pulled out her tablet and displayed a drawing. It was one of recent creations, a complex image showing multiple figures. Some were big and scary looking, others were small. The big figures were surrounding the small ones. "Drew this yesterday," Amy explained. "I did not understand it at first, so I asked him to tell me about it using our signs. Do you know what he said?" The committee members waited. He said this is his family. The big ones are warriors, the small ones are children. And these, she pointed to other figures approaching the family, are hunters. He said the hunters came and his family fought to protect the children, but the hunters won. He said his family is gone. Amy's voice was steady, but tears ran down her cheeks. He told me he was trying to protect his home when the hunters caught him. He said he thought everyone here wanted to hurt him too. That is why he would not let anyone close. He was scared. She looked at each committee member in turn. If he was just an animal, he could not tell me all that. He could not draw his memories. He could not explain his feelings. He could not be my friend. But he did all those things because he is not an animal. He is a person. The room was silent. Even Vex seemed momentarily at a loss for words. Brightness at Dawn, the representative, spoke in her musical voice. The child speaks truth. I feel no deception in her words, but feelings are not enough for this decision. We need more. Then let me show you more, Amy said. She turned to the large screen on the wall. Can we connect to Cell? Lisa quickly set up the video feed. Appeared on the screen, sitting in his usual spot. When he saw Amy on his monitor, he immediately made the hello gesture. Amy gestured back, then made a complex series of signs. Watched carefully. Then he responded with his own series of gestures. What are they saying? Dr. Pierce asked. I asked him if he wanted to talk to the committee, Amy translated. He said yes. He said he wants to explain. He wants them to understand. For the next 30 minutes, Amy served as translator while told his story through gestures and drawings. It was halting and incomplete, limited by their still developing shared language. But the message was clear. Was not a mindless predator. He was a border guardian who had protected his territory from poachers. The hunters who caught him had killed his family first. His aggression on the station had been defensive, driven by trauma and fear. He had assumed everyone here would hurt him like the hunters had. Until Amy showed him kindness. She was small, Amy translated, her voice thick with emotion. Like the children in his clan, he said protecting children is sacred to his people. When he saw I was not afraid, when I was nice to him, he remembered what he was supposed to be, not just a warrior, a protector. Made one final gesture. It was complex, combining several signs Amy had taught him. She had to ask him to repeat it twice before she understood. He says, Amy began, then had to stop and wipe her eyes. He says if you let him, he wants to help stop the fighting between his people and yours. He says there has been enough death, enough families broken. He wants to build a bridge instead of a wall. Commander, who had been silent throughout the hearing, finally spoke. That is a sophisticated concept. Peacemaking requires understanding of political structures, cultural conflict, and diplomatic process. An animal cannot conceive of such things. Exactly, Lisa said quietly. That is our point. The ethics committee asked to deliberate in private. The wait felt like an eternity. Jake held Amy close, proud of her courage and terrified of what would happen if the committee ruled against them. When the committee returned, Dr. Pierce spoke for all three. We have reached a decision. The evidence presented, particularly the direct communication demonstrated here today, is sufficient to grant preliminary sentient status to the individual known as. Jake felt relief flood through him, but Dr. Pierce held up a hand. However, this is only preliminary. Final sentient status requires more extensive evaluation. Coordinator Vex, your transfer order is suspended pending further review, will remain on this station under the current research protocols. Vex stood abruptly. This is a mistake. You are allowing emotion to cloud your judgment. Perhaps, Dr. Pierce said, but we would rather err on the side of protecting a potentially sentient being than risk destroying one. This hearing is concluded. As the committee filed out, Amy ran to the screen where image still showed. She made the two words had spoken changed everything overnight. News spread through the station like wildfire. The could talk. The creature they had all feared was not just intelligent, he was actively learning human language. Scientists who had dismissed Amy's methods now scrambled to understand how a 7-year-old had achieved what their sophisticated equipment could not. Jake found Amy the next morning sitting outside's observation window. She had her tablet out and was showing pictures of different objects, teaching him the names. Tree, Amy said slowly, pointing at an image. Can you say tree? Through the speaker's voice rumbled out. Good, yes, tree, Amy bounced with excitement. Now this one, cat. That. Jake sat down beside his daughter, watching the lesson. When did he start talking to you? Last night, Amy said. After the meeting. I came back to say goodnight and he just said my name. Well, he tried to, it sounded like, but I knew what he meant. And you did not think to tell anyone? Amy shrugged. I wanted it to be just for us first. He was practicing. He did not want everyone to hear until he got better at it. How did you know that? He told me, with signs. Amy made a gesture that Jake now recognized as their symbol for private or secret. He was embarrassed about not saying the words right. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest. Embarrassment was a complex emotion. It required self-awareness, social understanding, and concern about how others perceived you. Every day demonstrated more depth than anyone had imagined. Over the next week's vocabulary exploded. He learned dozens of words, stringing them into simple sentences. His grammar was rough, his pronunciation heavily accented, but he was undeniably communicating. The linguistics team worked around the clock, documenting everything. Dr. Peter Grant, who had initially dismissed Amy's methods, now sat in on every session. This is revolutionary, he told Jake one afternoon. Is not just memorizing words, he is understanding concepts. He asked me yesterday what the difference was between scared and worried. Those are abstract emotional states. His brain is processing language at a level we only see in highly intelligent species. But not everyone was celebrating. Coordinator Vex remained on the station, watching everything with cold eyes. He filed daily reports with the Galactic Council, arguing that language ability did not change his fundamental nature. A predator that could talk was just a more dangerous predator. The real test came 2 weeks after the ethics hearing. The council decided to send observers to evaluate directly. They would conduct their own tests, their own interviews, and make a final determination about his sentient status. The lead observer was a human woman named Dr. Helen Pierce, the same committee member who had granted preliminary status. She arrived with a team of specialists and immediately requested a private session with. No, Amy, we need to see if can communicate without his translator. Amy was not happy about being excluded, but she understood. Tell him I will be right outside, she told Dr. Pierce. Tell him he is going to do great. Jake watched through the observation window as Dr. Pierce entered the secure room adjacent to cell. She sat down, visible through the reinforced glass, and activated the communication system. Hello, she said. My name is Dr. Pierce. I am here to talk with you. Is that acceptable? There was a long pause, then his voice came through the speaker, slow and careful. Yes, acceptable. Good, I want to understand your situation better. Can you tell me about your home? About Prime? Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his words were halting but clear. Home is, hard world, strong survive, weak do not, but weak still matter, we protect weak. That is being civilized. Dr. Pierce made notes on her data pad. Who are the weak in your society? Children, elders, sick ones, those who make food make things. They are not warriors, but they are important. They are why we fight, to protect them. And you were a warrior. Guardian, border guardian, my clan territory had good water, good hunting. Others wanted it, I kept them out. By killing them, made a sound that might have been a sigh. By scaring them, most times showing strength enough, they leave. Sometimes they fight, then yes, kill or be killed, that is the way. But the hunters who captured you, Dr. Pierce said, you killed many of them, 9 deaths. They killed my family first. His voice dropped lower. Came at night, I was on patrol. When I returned, they were dead. My mate, my younglings, all dead. Hunters took them for, I do not know the word, proof, trophy. I am sorry, Dr. Pierce said quietly. That must have been very painful. Pain is weak word, pain is body hurt. This is soul hurt, heart hurt, everyday hurt. Jake felt his throat tighten. Even through the broken grammar and heavy accents, grief was palpable. This was not a monster. This was a person who had lost everything. Dr. Pierce continued her questioning for another hour. She asked about culture, social structures, beliefs. Answered everything as best he could, sometimes struggling to find the right words in human language, but always trying. When the session ended, Dr. Pierce looked shaken. She found Jake in the observation deck. That was one of the most difficult interviews I have ever conducted, she admitted. Not because was hostile or uncooperative, because he is clearly traumatized, what he described. His family was slaughtered as trophies. He was captured while grieving, and we kept him in isolation for 6 months, treating him like a dangerous animal. We did not know, Jake said. No, we did not, but that does not excuse it. We should have tried harder to understand before assuming the worst. She looked back at Cell. He has every reason to hate us, but when I asked him how he felt about humans, do you know what he said? Jake shook his head. He said most humans are like the hunters, scared and angry, but some humans are like Amy, kind and brave. He said Amy taught him that not all killing things are evil, sometimes they are just scared too. That evening, Jake sat with Amy in their quarters. She was drawing another picture of, this one showing him standing in front of a beautiful landscape that she imagined was his home world. The council is going to decide about soon, Jake said gently. Dr. Pierce thinks they will grant him full sentient status. Do you know what that means? He will be free, Amy asked hopefully. Not exactly free, but he will have rights. He cannot be treated like a specimen anymore. He will be treated like a person. Good, Amy said firmly. That is what he deserves. But Amy, there is something else. If the council grants him sentient status, they will offer him a choice. He can go back to his people, or he can stay here and help build peace between and other species. But either way, he will not be able to stay on this station forever. And we might not be able to stay either. My assignment here could end. Amy's eyes filled with tears. So either way, I lose my friend. Jake pulled her close. Friendship does not end because people are far apart. You and Will always be friends. You taught him that kindness matters. He will never forget that. And neither will anyone else who saw what you did. The council's decision came 3 days later. They granted full sentient status and issued a formal apology for his mistreatment. More than that, they offered him an unprecedented opportunity. Commander Sanders gathered everyone in the main conference room to announce it. His image appeared on the large screen, with Amy sitting in the front row so he could see her. The Galactic Council has officially recognized as a sentient individual with full rights under council law, Sanders began. They have also extended an invitation for him to serve as the first cultural ambassador. His role would be to help facilitate understanding between territories and council space. Murmurs ran through the room. This was huge. The council had been on the brink of war for years. Having a willing to build bridges instead of walls could change everything. Sanders continued, looking at the screen. This is your choice. You can return to your people if you wish. We will arrange safe passage and provide compensation for your mistreatment, or you can accept this ambassadorship. But I want you to understand what that means. It means staying in council space. It means working with species you were raised to distrust. It means putting yourself at risk for a peace that might never come. No one will think less of you if you choose to go home. Everyone watched the screen, sat still for a long moment. Then he looked directly at Amy. Amy, he said clearly, you teach me important thing. You teach me that being strong is not just fighting. Being strong is choosing to not fight when you could, choosing to build instead of break, choosing to forgive instead of revenge. He turned his gaze to include the whole room. My family is gone, cannot bring them back, but can honor them, can make their death mean something, can work so other families do not die like mine did, so other children do not lose parents, other parents do not lose children. Stood to his full height, 8 feet of muscle and claws, but his voice was gentle. I accept. I will be ambassador. I will build bridge for my family, for Amy, for all people who are tired of war. The room erupted in applause. Amy was crying and smiling at the same time. Jake felt pride swell in his chest, not just for his choice, but for his daughter who had made it possible. The weeks that followed were busy. Was moved to new quarters on the diplomatic level, much more comfortable than his cell. He began intensive language training and cultural education. Ambassadors from various species came to meet him, many of them skeptical at first, but gradually won over by his intelligence and sincerity. The first diplomatic ship arrived 2 months later. They had heard about his survival and his new role. They came with caution and suspicion, but they came. Jake stood with Amy in the docking bay as prepared to greet his people. Though was wearing formal ambassadorial robes, looking every bit the dignified representative. But when he saw Amy, he knelt down to her level. Amy, he said, his human language now fluent though still accented. Because of you, I am here. Because of you, my people and your people have chance for peace. How do I thank you for saving my life, for showing me kindness when I had forgotten what it looked like? Amy hugged him, her small arms barely reaching around his massive frame. "You do not have to thank me. You are my friend. Friends help each other." Gently returned the hug, careful of his strength. "Then I thank you as friend, best friend I ever had." He stood, straightening his robes. "I must go now, my people are waiting, but I will see you again, I promise." Amy nodded, trying to be brave. "I know, go build your bridge." Jake watched walk toward the airlock where the delegation waited. Just before he entered, the big alien turned back and raised his hand. He made the sign Amy had taught him on that first day. "Hello, friend, thank you," all combined into one gesture that had become theirs alone. Amy made the gesture back, tears streaming down her face. As the airlock closed and disappeared from view, Amy turned to her father. "I am going to miss him." "I know, sweetheart, but look at what you did. You saw past the scary exterior and found the person inside. You chose compassion over fear. That is the bravest thing anyone can do." "Is that what makes humans special?" Amy asked. "That we choose to be kind even when we are scared?" Jake thought about all the species in the galaxy. The ones who chose aggression, who chose isolation, who chose to see others as threats first and people second. Then he thought about his daughter, 7 years old, who had looked at the most dangerous predator anyone had ever captured and decided to offer friendship instead of fear. "Yes," Jake said, picking Amy up in his arms. "I think that is exactly what makes us special. We can choose compassion. We can choose to build bridges instead of walls. We can choose to see the person behind the threat. That is humanity at its best." 3 months later, the first formal peace talks between the territories and the Galactic Council were held on Research Station Meridian. Served as the primary negotiator for his people, using everything he had learned about both cultures to find common ground. Amy attended the opening ceremony with her father. She wore her best dress and carried her tablet with all the drawings she had made of. When the delegation saw them, they were moved to tears. Their fiercest warrior, who they had thought lost forever, had been saved by a child's kindness. That night, after the ceremonies ended, Amy sat within his quarters. They drew together, as they always had, creating pictures of a future wherein humans worked together instead of fighting. "Do you think it will work?" Amy asked. "The peace talks." "Considered this. I do not know. Peace is harder than war, takes longer, needs more courage, but if it can work, it is worth trying. You taught me that." Amy smiled. "You taught me something too." "What is that?" "That everybody deserves a chance. Even scary people. Even people everyone else has given up on, because sometimes the scariest people are just the saddest ones who need help the most." Reached out and gently touched Amy's hand with one massive claw, the gesture that had started everything. Human and child and warrior, fear overcome by compassion. "You are wise beyond your years, small friend," said softly. "You will do great things in your life. Already have done great things. You proved that humanity's greatest strength is not weapons or technology, is choice to see person when others see monster, choice to offer hand when others offer violence. That choice changes everything." Through the viewport of quarters, the stars shone bright against the darkness of space. And on one small research station, and a human child sat together, drawing pictures of hope and proving that the galaxy's most dangerous predator and its most vulnerable innocent could find common ground. Because someone had chosen compassion over fear. Because someone had chosen to see the person behind the threat. Because a little girl named Amy had looked at the untouchable and decided to reach out anyway. And in doing so, she had changed the galaxy forever. Their sign for friend then added a new gesture. Thumb up, the universal human sign for good news. Carefully the gesture, then he did something that made everyone in the room stop and stare. He made a sound, not a growl or a roar. A word, rough and badly pronounced but unmistakable. "Thank you." Amy burst into tears of joy. Jake stood frozen in shock. Even Vex seemed stunned. Had spoken in human language, with intention and meaning. The game had just changed completely. "We bought time," Jake said to Lisa and Sanders. "But Vex is right. We need more than drawings and behavior changes. We need proof that can truly communicate." "Then we better figure out how to talk to him," Lisa said, looking at the massive through the glass. "Because I do not think we will get another chance." "He has full authority," Sanders said. "The council wants results, and Vex has convinced them that our methods are too slow. He believes aggressive research protocols will be more effective. Lisa looked sick. Aggressive protocols will destroy everything Amy has built, will shut down again, or worse, he will become the monster they think he is. We have 24 hours, Sanders said. Vex has agreed to let Amy say goodbye to, after that he is gone. Jake felt cold dread settle in his stomach. How could he tell Amy that her friend was being taken away?